I spend a lot of time in Japan and I work with a lot of growers. They laugh at me. They laugh at you when you talk about ceremonial grade. They say, "Oh, Mark, son, you know that. You know better than that." There's no such thing. It's a Western concept. And in Japan, almost nobody speaks about ceremonial grade matcha.
Right.
It's a made-up grade with absolutely no standard whatsoever to it. You can buy something, and so long as you can get the processor to say to you, "Is this up to ceremonial grade?" They'll say yes, because
they know it's going to sell it. If the content we bring you on the podcast has helped you with your business or your career and you're looking for a way to financially support the independent production of this podcast, you can do that for as little as a few dollars a month by backing us on Patreon or becoming a paid subscriber on our YouTube channel. Another way to support us and continue your learning is to purchase one of our on-demand workshops available on our website, mapperforward.coffee/workshops. Check the show notes for links, and as always, thanks for the support. Welcome to the Daily Coffee Pro by Mapper Forward, friends. I'm your host, Lee Safar, and this is episode 3 of a wonderful 5-part series with Mark Bartlett from Biochar Products. And folks, off air, Mark and I had a contentious, I let him start the conversation and then I stopped him because I want you guys to hear the rest of this conversation. Mark revealed to me what about peanut butter, Mark?
I've never warmed peanut butter. I don't like the texture. I've tried some of the best in the world, artisan ones, etc., etc. Sure, I can appreciate what it is, but would I ever go and put some on a piece of bread? Never. There are lots of other things that are much better.
That's like saying you don't like potatoes, to be honest.
Oh, I do. I love potatoes. There are so many things you can do with it, but what can you do with peanut butter?
I mean, you do put them in sauces and stuff, right?
Oh yes, of course. It has its use as an ingredient. I view it.
Okay. You see it as an ingredient.
I view it more as an ingredient. And you think of some of those lovely peanut sauces on, on satays, and you go to Indonesia or Malaysia, and I'll eat that, lap that up. But this thing about wiping it on, smearing it on some bread and eating it, doesn't do it for me.
Well, I have one jar of Pig's peanut butter, and I'm going to sacrifice that jar and bring it down to raw. You bring the great sourdough. I will bring the Pig's, and we can see if we can possibly convert you. Shout out to Pig, who is the founder of Pig's Peanut Butter. Again, no financial arrangement there. It's just the best peanut butter. It's in New Zealand.
Where is it made in New Zealand?
In Christchurch.
Okay, cool. Yeah.
And Pig goes to extensive levels to go and source. No, it might be Auckland. I can't remember. I'm really sorry. He told me many times and I've forgotten.
That's all right. Sorry.
But he goes to huge levels to buy the best peanuts he can in the world that haven't been messed with chemicals, that are going to have the best flavor. He takes care of his farmers. It is truly a very considered product, and it tastes amazing. And it really leans into what we want to talk about in this episode, which is what is the relationship between quality and money in cafes and restaurants today. Now, I discovered Pig by accident. And the really interesting thing was I released my last single for my music career. This is how deep my love for peanut butter is, on a Pig's peanut butter jar. So if you bought the album, you got the download was on. We added an extra sticker to the Pig organised all of this. It was really wonderful. And we released the single Fallen on a Pig's peanut butter jar. And the thing at the time was that Pig's wasn't really in the cafe scene at that time. It was really just finding its way to the market. And this would have been more than 10 years ago, more than 12 years ago now. But the funny thing was, every cafe owner that started tasting Pig's replaced the peanut butter that was on their menu with this very, very, very expensive peanut butter, and everybody started ordering peanut butter on toast. And it was this quality that was being introduced into the cafe where Aussies, when they would come in, they would start asking the question, Never before did they do this. But once Pick arrived on the scene, they started saying, what peanut butter do you have on the menu?
Isn't that wonderful?
It's fucking peanut butter. Nobody asked that before, right? And then what happened? The next iteration of that, instead of putting peanut butter and toast on the menu, people put Pick's peanut butter and toast on the menu. So you were selling more because of the quality that you had, and people were happy to pay the extra because it was Pick's peanut butter. And it's the only peanut butter I'll buy now. And people, when they come from Australia and visit me here, they bring jars of peanut butter. Like it's got a cult kind of following because very clear, very, very clear that Pick will put the best peanuts that he can. It's got nothing but peanuts and a little bit of salt in the jar. It's either smooth or crunchy. And for anyone who's wondering, smooth is only for baking as far as I'm concerned. Pick agrees with this. You should only be eating crunchy peanut butter if you're putting it on bread. That aside though, when we look at something like that, that's a thing where the money doesn't really come into play in the relationship between the product and the customer. It's a whole different other story with the way that we have seen restaurants and cafes make decisions about things like coffee and things like the kind of bread that they're using, et cetera, et cetera. So what is the relationship between quality and money these days when it comes to cafes and restaurants, in your opinion?
Right. Okay. Again, that's quite a complex question, but I'll try and put it in a succinct way, the answer in a succinct way. Firstly, you'll notice, how often do you look at a menu and you see such and such brand of product has been used in this dish? Almost never.
Hardly ever. Hardly ever.
So there is this push. Well, it's been long-standing, of course, is that in the corporate world, in the corporate restaurants, cafe chains, etc., they don't want people to know whose product they're buying and using. They might do it with coffee. In fact, they do often do it with coffee because that's got itself in a niche. So they'll say we're using raw or we're using whatever may happen to be. But in other products, and I find this very, it annoys me with my product, where I know that my product is creating a drink that will absolutely delight the customer. Going to be, most of our products are a treat. So that you're going to, it's you're not going to, but it's going to be as healthy as it can be.
It's a specialty version of that treat.
Exactly, specialty beverage. Yep. Yet we have people who are using our product, huge quantities of it, drive their sales and growth. They won't put the name. I mean, sorry, you wouldn't do it with coffee, or to me, it's just and what that does is it drives it. And I'm not complaining about that from my perspective. I'm talking about what is the core. It means that there is no real visibility about what's being used and what you eat, because most businesses don't want you to know that anyway. Not necessarily because they're giving you something bad, but because they don't want to disclose a secret, or they don't want the cafe down the road to be coming in and buying this. There's lots of reasons around it. And in the corporate world, they just won't do it full stop.
But it's interesting that they'll say organic eggs, but they won't tell you the farm that the eggs came from. They will say that it's organic.
Yep.
Or
go on. They use these words like they're thrown around,
that mean fucking nothing a lot of the time.
Exactly. Yep. They do mean nothing. So that's part of the reason around answering part of your question. The other part of the question is, again, who's making these decisions about what you're actually eating, and who is deciding what the cost of that product should be. So we will find that there is, particularly within corporates, you have, Matt uses the term, people who work in rooms without windows. And
that's such a Matt thing to say.
Yeah, and their KPI is to keep costs as low as they can, and their success is measured on keeping the cost low
and paying their shareholders.
They get but they don't get any recognition because for them keeping that cost low is important. They have bear no responsibility as to whether a product sells or whether there is good turnover.
Yeah.
They're not rewarded for that in terms of saying, well, I'm going to buy this product because I know that the kitchen wants it and I know we're going to sell more of it. They're not rewarded for that by and large. So they're thinking in their world. So they're in a corporate, and the default position is, this is too expensive. Always the default position. And so that's an issue. And the amount of chefs that I speak to, not only in this town, it's not only here.
Mm-hmm.
It's this is not Dubai. I'm not bashing Dubai at all.
It's everywhere.
It's everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
Most chefs have very little say over what ingredients they can use. They think they do, but at the end of the day, when you actually talk to them, they don't. Now you have ones that stand out that can, because of who they are, or because of the nature of who they are, won't stand for that and will push that. But they're able to then drive success and sales, etc., etc. But they will always be arguing with the
finance
person.
people, the purchaser, the procurement people.
Well, procurement themselves, not procurement people, although they want to be, they themselves want to. But it's the person and that person you never get to see who's in that room with no windows, who ultimately can stop it and does. So it becomes a battle, and eventually the chef will choose: is it worth this battle? Is it not? And I'll give you one example.
Mm-hmm.
Very good example. Been to this well-known establishment in Dubai. I won't mention who they are.
Mm-hmm.
And a good position. It's very nice. And they a part of their offer, they're offering, they call it Japanese, but I call it more fusion approach. Now, they've obviously put a lot of effort into certain ingredients that you're using with it. But the final ingredient, and I'm pseudo-Japanese, so you've got to forgive me for this. The final two ingredients that are important is the soy sauce and the pickled ginger.
Mm-hmm.
And I went to this place, and seriously, I mean, the dish itself was pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
But the moment you dip it into an inferior soy sauce,
you've bastardized it.
But I can get over that. I can not use the soy and use a bit of lemon or something. But then you've got, which is a very important ingredient within Japanese cuisine, is the pickled ginger.
Mm.
And they serve this fake pink ginger.
Mm.
If you ever see pink ginger guys out there in a Japanese restaurant, Japanese style restaurant, send it back. Tell them you won't eat because it's full of poison and everything else. It's just dreadful.
Really?
Yep. So now I had the conversation with the chef who I kind of knew, and he tried to defend the position. But in the end, quietly at the end, he said, "Mark, it's just not worth the argument that I would have to go through to get this."
Wow, isn't that interesting?
Natural ginger. You know what the difference in the cost?
No.
Is a few fills.
Wow.
Yeah. But it's, from my perspective, certainly any Japanese that they had in there, they would immediately to themselves just think, "Oh, that restaurant's no good."
It's not a real Japanese restaurant.
They would look at that and say, "Oh, that's no good." So that's an issue. And then the last issue I think that's driving things is the cost of rent. Now we have gone through, and this is not Dubai, it's everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
All of a sudden, the cost to rent somewhere becomes in some instances, the biggest cost that you have within the business. And you can only sell a product for X amount. So what do? You dumb it down, or you try to ask it or do whatever. And the economic model around rents, to me, I've never agreed with, and I can put you on to people. The CEO of Coffee Club in New Zealand, very good example. You should get him on your podcast.
Yeah, I should actually.
Amazing guy. And it just is. It doesn't bear any relationship to the real value of something. So a lot of them will say, "Oh, but this property's worth X amount of $1 billion." Well, before it was a piece of dirt, sure, you probably spent 100 million on it. Why is it now worth X billion? It's worth it because you're able to screw the rents around, but eventually it will fail. Eventually they fail. And how often do you see restaurants and cafes come and go? And more often than not, it's because they're not making money. And the main reason, one of the reasons they're not making money is because of the high rents. And now people will say, "Oh, if you're any good, you'll do well." And there'll be certainly examples where restaurants are doing extremely well.
Many of the very best restaurants in Sydney and in Melbourne, a vast majority of them are closing in 2025 because of rents.
Yes, they are, and it's terrible. And what's going to replace them?
Corporate businesses, in my opinion, like corporate restaurants.
Or vape shops or something.
Yeah, 100%. And you know, people turn around and say, "Yeah, well, fuck, that's capitalism." Well, this is like creep, right? Like you're creeping in culture creep. We're changing a society. We're removing the places where people go to actually experience different things, learn about other people, meet other people, have dates, go with their family, do all of these things. These places are disappearing. And they're disappearing because they can't find a way to solve this puzzle of the relationship between their COGS, their OPEX, and their revenue. And they can't find a way to make those three things work together so that they can keep their businesses open for anything more than a few months. And the runways are getting shorter and shorter and shorter and shorter as we get into 2025. Because in my opinion, we've got a major economic event coming. I don't know what it is, but it's happening in cafes and it's happening in restaurants. As ag gets more expensive and as yields go down in agriculture, we are starting to see producers say, "I can't generate enough income to cover the running of the cost of this farm. Therefore, the price has to go up of my product."
And that comes down to the whole sourcing model.
Yeah.
That's you. Now, a very good example of that is cocoa. Now, we've seen cocoa go up in price dramatically. Now, we are a big consumer of cocoa. And we see what's going on within farms. There are three major companies, I won't mention, but there are three major companies who dominate the cocoa world. Price they're paying for cocoa is scandalous because they are making so much money on it. But the farmer who's producing it doesn't have enough to feed his children, let alone look after his plantation, let alone to be able to afford to have proper fertilizer and to do pest control and make sure those plants are healthy. So what's the end result of that? West Africa, which is by far and away the biggest producer of cocoa in the world, as it stands now, is having a crisis. Disease is running rampant within their plants.
Yeah. Well, and there's geopolitics involved in that too, right? Like people should go and look up how the pricing structures are set up in Côte d'Ivoire with regards to how cocoa farmers are subsidized in inverted commas for cocoa, but and this was to help them when the prices were really, really low. But now that the prices went from $2,000 per metric ton to above $10,000 per metric ton, the coffee producers are not seeing any of that excess.
No, they won't be. And they don't. Yes. And neither the cocoa producers are not seeing it. And that's sad. So, we at Bonaccord are wanting to embrace more of this direct supply.
Oh, awesome.
We're my partner, Paul, he's working now in Colombia, working with farmers and people who are helping farmers, so we can buy our cocoa from. And there should be some really interesting cocos coming out of Colombia and South America.
Yeah, I can put you in contact with a bunch of people too.
And that'd be great, thank you. But a part of that is we want to pay the farm a fair price so he can send his children to school, can some money to have a better future, and be able to reinvest within his farm.
Yeah.
Now, all of that's very simplistic to say, and there are lots of other factors that come outside from that. But to me, cocoa, chocolate used to be a luxury. As I grew up, it was a luxury.
Mm-hmm.
Now you can go and buy something at the supermarket on the way out the door because it happens to be sitting there for peanuts, and you think to yourself, and usually it's rubbish. And it's full of everything but cocoa, or if it has cocoa and it's got very little, but it's chocolate. So we've now shifted the culture away to, I can eat chocolate every day of the week. We would never have considered that. Child. I mean, that's just, A, it's not good. But B, you would never have considered that. So there's one industry there that we're now seeing the effect of it. Everybody's saying, we've had to put we're the largest producer of cocoa products in New Zealand.
Wow.
And we've had to put our prices up dramatically, double digits with a 3 or 4 or 5 in front of it, because of the. Now we know that those farmers are not getting that. They're not getting. Where's the money?
Right. Well, you lead me into the question that when we talk about what you're saying with regards to cacao, this idea that it's so available and everybody's got it, another product that's in that vein is matcha. Matcha was something that it wasn't a ceremonial thing, but it was like a thing. And I know you hate that term, ceremonial matcha.
I see you do.
We will talk about that. But this idea that matcha seems to be the new coffee. Matcha seems to be able to have done the thing that tea wasn't able to do in cafes and in restaurants. So they made this kind of penetration that it went from being this very rarely ordered product in cafes to now almost being on par, if not surpassing, coffee. And I'm not sure that matcha was supposed to be this consumed on a daily basis as it is. I know that you're half Japanese. You spent so much time there. You should be an honorary Japanese.
I'm not, unfortunately.
But I feel like matcha's gone down the same, or is going down the same road as what chocolate or cacao has gone down.
There's a bit of a difference there. In that, actually, as I think about it, maybe there's not. Certainly matcha that's grown in Japan, or tea that's grown in Japan that's made into matcha. The growers and the processors, they have centuries of history behind what they do, and as much as the corporates will try and screw them, it's difficult for them. So a lot of them have been raced off and planted in China and Vietnam and other places, planting green tea. And tea originally came from China, so there's nothing wrong with that. But why is matcha what it is? Matcha is one of those quintessential Japanese things. And it's considered not sacred, but this is us. Like soba, or
like hummus is to the Levant.
Yes, yeah, exactly. Yeah, very well put. Yeah. But with matcha, unfortunately, there's been in the West, there's been a bastardization of what matcha is. And this term ceremonial grade, and people will challenge me on this, but I'm sorry, I spend a lot of time in Japan and I work with a lot of growers. They laugh at me. They laugh at you when you talk about ceremonial grade. They say, "Oh, Mark-san, you know that, you know better than that." There's no such thing. It's a Western concept. And in Japan, almost nobody speaks about ceremonial grade matcha.
Right.
It's a made-up grade with absolutely no standard whatsoever to it. You can buy something, and so long as you can get the processor to say to you, "Is this up to ceremonial grade?" They'll say yes, because
They know it's going to sell it.
anything can be used in the tea ceremony. You then start talking about the level of matcha, and the they don't even talk about grades. It's about the grower who is doing this.
Yeah.
And they are growing this tencha in this way, and single estates, things like that. It's very similar to coffee language. Yeah, very similar to coffee language. Yeah. Our growers, we've been working with them now for well over 20 years. We have a long relationship with them. When nobody was really using a lot of matcha, we were using a reasonable amount. But matcha's had a couple of goes at becoming trendy, and because people basically didn't know how to handle or didn't know how to do it, it sort of became popular, and then people realized, actually, I'm not really enjoying drinking this, and they just stopped.
Yeah.
But I think the trend in matcha now is like something that certainly Japanese have never seen before.
Right.
And they're all a bit sort of shocked by it. But they're even more shocked as to what companies are saying the product is. So
okay.
I'd suggest if you're serious about matcha, you want to really understand about matcha, there's a tea place over the road from us at Matcha who just opened up a new showroom. I have a deep respect for those people.
Okay.
Wow. Do they know their stuff? They really
Across
do.
the road from Raw.
Yes, it's a brand new shop. So it's a tea shop, but they call it a tea shop, but basically they're selling various teas from around the lots, and they're kind of I think that somebody's going to say to me, "Hey, Mark, what about so-and-so?" But from what I've seen, they're probably the leading company in the UAE, and they're just passionate about everything. I love that. Love passion.
Yeah, love that.
And then go in there and ask them to explain to you about matcha and what is it. And they never used the term ceremonial grade when I was there. I was really impressed. They talked about different estates and why and the wherefores of it. And that was a fantastic thing to see. So anyway, we're digressing. This is not a...
We have, but it's like everyone's going to love it, because matcha is one of those things where I always thought matcha was an expensive tea. And I'm starting to notice that doesn't matter, because the consumer is happy to pay whatever the cost of the matcha is going to be. They won't do that for coffee.
No.
They will do that for matcha. And so...
because of the mystique.
Yeah. I mean, and it's cool and it's trendy, and that's where we are now. People are following trends rather than following quality. But somewhere buried in there, they're starting to tell the difference between a good matcha and a shitty matcha, which is something, I guess.
Some people are. Some people just think, "Oh, I don't like matcha." The amount of times that I've had people, and I say to here, "Listen, I make you this matcha, and they say, "Oh, I don't." So, well, that's fine. Just have a sip. And the amount of times that people say, they'll finish the glass.
Yeah.
Or they'll say, "I've never tasted matcha like that." So, and one of the mistakes I'm sort of a bit worried about, you're running out of time in the segment because it's quite important to me, is that matcha in itself, trust your tongue, trust your palate. doesn't matter how sophisticated you think you are or think you're not, your palate will never lie to you. If you eat something or drink something and that doesn't taste good, it's generally because it's not. And what a lot of people in the West think is that, and I include Dubai in this because Dubai sits in different cultures. She's pretty Western in many ways too.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah. And a lot of people think that everybody in Japan sits there and does this and drinks matchas in a ceremonial, in a ceremony. Yeah. They don't. Of course, they will. Certain ceremonies, certain experiences in life, and you'll have a small group of them that will do that every day because that's what they do. But by and large, the vast majority of matcha is consumed in a dessert or cake or sweet drink or ice cream or something in Japan. Vast majority of it is.
Really?
Yes, the vast majority goes into.
Got to go to Japan.
Just look, and of course, you will have people who will drink it just pure as it is, and or they certainly won't go through this exercise, but they'll use a lower, a more regular based matcha. They'll just throw in and bang and drink that. That's fine, but by and large, unless that matcha is extremely high quality, it's very difficult to drink.
Right.
That. But I'm not trying to dismiss the traditional way that Japan makes. Of course they do, but more often than not, it's because they bought this beautiful cake, or it's a matcha cake, or it's a Kit Kat. I remember I saw matcha Kit Kat in Japan just before the pandemic. I couldn't believe it, and everybody in Japan was excited about it. They were racing out buying.
Yeah. I remember when that came out, I'm like, what the fuck are we doing? Like, well, and no doubt they'll bring that back now that matcha's become a really big thing all over the world. But the matcha thing raises a really interesting, what you just said about matcha there raises a really interesting topic. And that's about like, is quality subjective? And that's what we're going to talk about in the next episode, because some people love matcha because everybody else loves matcha. And other people love matcha because they really love the flavor of matcha. So let's talk about quality in the next episode and the subjectivity of it. So join us for that, folks. Peace, love, and peanut butter. Have an amazing rest of your day. I really hope you enjoyed this episode, friends. Please don't forget to show us some love by subscribing, liking, commenting, and most of all, sharing this podcast with your friends. Check the show notes for links, including our sponsors and our Patreon. And stay tuned for more great conversations on the Daily Coffee Pro by Mapper Forward.